Goedenavond, dames en heren. Ik ben Elise Kaluwaert en samen met pianist Kim van den Bremt brengen wij vanuit Concertgebouw Brugge het tweede boek met cabaretliederen van William Bolcom.
En voordat we met de muziek beginnen, hebben we vanavond de eer en het genoegen om William Bolcom zelf te interviewen. En samen met zijn vrouw Joan Morris is hij vanuit Michigan in zijn studio, in zijn huis, met ons een gesprek aangegaan eerder deze week. En we zijn heel blij en trots dat we dat met jullie kunnen delen. Dus 20 minuutjes ongeveer interview en dan ook 20 minuten de hele cyclus van het tweede volume van de Cabaret Songs van William Bolcom. Veel plezier.
Hi, Mr. Bolcom. It's amazing to meet you. How are you?
I am extremely well, and I'm very happy to see both of you today.
Amazing. Where are you now?
I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan, slightly out of town, which is about 50 miles west of Detroit.
So our big question was, with the Cabaret Songs, since you premiered all of them, all four,
But except for two that were written for Barbara Harris.
right?
Barbara Harris, the actress. And those were for, she was also very much involved with the great Second City Troupe, which in 1961, when I came back from Paris, because the draft had called me, I was going to have to try to join the army, but then Stanford called up and said, we'll give you a doctorate instead. So, okay, so I stayed there. But meantime, I was working, of course, while I was waiting to go out to California with Arnold, and we worked on quite a number of things. So, but the Cabaret Songs as such began only later when I started to see some of his poems and find a way that maybe we could do that. He wasn't quite sure he liked the name of Cabaret Song because the idea of cabaret is so many different things depending on where you're living. But I said, this is kind of, we're forming an American cabaret. Let's just do a new one that will have to do with the difference between American cabaret and French cabaret and German cabaret and Italian cabaret. And it's sort of where we were in a way. So I think that's probably was one of the founding ideas of making Cabaret Songs.
The cabaret places here, except for when Billie Holiday would be singing or Ma Rainey, when you could get deeply into things. But most cabaret, it was entertaining rather than...
We have a little think of this difference, honey. When we played Cairo, and it was advertised as American cabaret, we had to make absolutely clear the word cabaret in the Egyptian society means essentially a place where you can go pick up girls or be a prostitute, But that's not what we meant.
From Gabardouche in France, right? Which is the
I guess so. Right.
where stuff happens that no one's supposed to know about. My question was, since you've written these songs over such a large period of time,
From 53.
in how far were you influenced by Arnold Weinstein's words, and was he influenced by your music?
We had about a 45-year collaboration, and I think it would be very hard for me to separate which was his and which was my areas that we didn't specialize. He gave me tunes, I gave him words all the time, and so it was a constant question of who did what, and I really don't know anymore. I mean, we were so much in a kind of a married as far as our stylistic point of view was concerned, that there almost was, I could fill in something he had missed. He also gave me, I remember one time I was trying to get a tune for, it wasn't the policeman's fault, which is, that one. So,
shouting when he saw me, he shouted
Amor.
Oh yeah. I'll probably never sing that again. Oh, I look forward to your reading.
Well, so anyway, what happened was I couldn't try to find, that was the one I couldn't get the right tune for. I wrote something out, which was just a kind of cabaret-ish. It wasn't the policeman's fault. It just wasn't happy with it, and I didn't like it, and he didn't like it. We had a very simple law. We both had to like it or it didn't pass.
Right.
So I said, Arnold, I have tried now. Would you sing the opening part? And he went, it wasn't the policeman's fault. It's stopping after the. So it wasn't the policeman's fault. Now, it happened to be that I was a great fan of the fellow who was so popular in the Pachanga. And
Nazare?
no, honey. The Pachanga was South America in another kind of way. And the name of the guy was Mongo Santa Marina. Mongo Santa Maria used to have, he was a wonderful performer. I heard him in San Francisco with my cousins, Ben and Anita Gross. And so I was just, but I love the Pachanga anyway, because it's a very, that's a Pachanga rhythm.
Right.
And so that's what made me sort of interested in the whole thing. So, when I went, it wasn't the policeman's fault. The idea of stopping suddenly, we're in Pachanga territory. And the idea is this beautiful girl in the ghetto and all these other guys going and looking, you know, they have their world. And she takes it all with great joy because her brother is nearby. If they ever get into trouble, they have to do with her brother. But that's the barrio atmosphere, and that was what I was interested in doing. So I try to use that thing, plus the fact that the Pachanga being a rhythm. So those are the things that filled out. So I owe that song, tune and everything, really to Arnold. And but I mean, there are whole sections of words I put in, and he said, you know, he sort of, because we were close enough that we had sort of found a kind of common style we both could accept as ours, whether I wrote it or he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other question?
Yeah, I was wondering when you talked about Messiaen, these cabaret songs, they're probably written with your piano playing. I guess it starts also from kind of improvisation or a feel or a groove on the piano itself, or is it just on a desk that you imagine everything? How is the processes of writing?
Well, I had learned how to improvise on paper.
Oh, right.
And I also had a pretty clear idea of what my own kind of style. But I mean, I played some jazz, but I didn't really feel myself as a jazzer.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what I really did do was have a lot to do with the Joplin revival in Ragtime, which was a very landmark thing for Americans because Joplin, who wrote the Maple Leaf Rag, very famous rag, and really had a style which had perfectly fused the African American and European elements, and with a great deal of discipline. He was the only one of all those ragtime composers who spelled correctly. In other words, he used, you know, a fadez when you need a fadez, even if it don't, because it's correct. If the popular music people, they always did the simplest possible reading, and it didn't make sense, but because they figured people who had to deal with a double sharp or double flat couldn't do it. So in other words, you had to deal with how do you find a thing between people who were basically, well, not every pianist who was Hyman, for example, great jazz player, a totally literate person, and so on. But a lot of the people, the great ones who couldn't read music, or didn't read music, or because they were too lazy to read music, they did it all purely by ear. So I had sort of found an amalgam of the style, and you know, in those days, my piano technique was pretty fluent, and I could do it. So that's essentially how this whole style happened. So the cabaret songs have a popular feel about them, but the texture is much more sophisticated, and not. I'm not trying to hit the top 40 in the pop world with them at all.
No, definitely
Not
not.
that anybody could, unless you know. No.
They're actually quite challenging as a performer, I would say.
Oh, sure.
That's right. You said it, honey.
They've
Yep.
been like interesting surprises, you know?
Well, that's what I'd be bored if I didn't do that. But
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
But I
feel
think that's part of
Yeah.
the quality in a way, that you're constantly surprised as a musician of where the music takes you.
well, that's otherwise it would be
Yes.
boring. You know, if you're going to be doing it all a long part of your life, you might as well find something in there at the second, and third, and 15th, and 33rd time you've done. So you do hope to have something that would have a little bit more of that. It's just that people ask, "Can you write something?" So says, "I can't write easy music.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to write easy music. I just can't."
And is there also your European background with your teachers? You talked about Messiaen, but there is Milo also. And
Emil, the most important one, because Messiaen did not teach composition except to certain personalities. Stephen, English composer who studied with quite famous. I'm blanking on it, but I mean he's one of the people who actually did touch. But he did not teach Messiaen was not thought well of by the other conservatoire people, except for Mio, who liked him very much, because there was a fear that he would sort of turn people into converts of his style. But I don't think he did. I think the ones who followed him did so on their own interest in trying to be like Messiaen, and it's just that's not what I think even Messiaen cared about that. But you know, people do want to find something. They want to find some kind of person to light on. Plus the fact I was there during the Dictature de Boulez, which meant everybody was sort of being a little afraid of him. I did an article just recently in the New Yorker Review of Books and about the whole thing.
A letter you wrote,
yeah.
an article about Boulez.
Yeah, it was an article about Boulez, and I wrote a letter to it, and I said I was one of the relics of that period, and what it was about him. I still think Boulez is a wonderful musician, not only because of the way he conducted and so on, but his choice and taste and everything he did. I don't see why he had to be such a bully. That was his need personally, and I think he intimidated a whole generation of French composers, and I had felt a little bit of the same kind of thing, because I was somehow trying to figure out where do I belong in all of this. Do I do it? And I had somehow thought at one point or another, maybe I'll go and live in France because I could be comfortable there. But at the same time, I would always be an expat. I would always be outside. And I've also seen what happened to people who did that. Well, you essentially disappear. So.
Yes. But there, you have a fantastic CV. You won all the prizes one could win, and still it's
not the ones that have lots of money.
it's still a mystery to me why here in Europe or in Brussels we don't really know your music. It's not so many played. So do you have any explanation for that?
Because I'm American and you are not, and also there are French composers. Speaking of somebody whom I loved, Henri Pousseur.
Yes.
He's not French, eh?
He's Belgian.
He's not French.
I know it. I know that very well. He stayed at the house. Yeah. No, I actually premiered some of his piano music in America. I did the same with Leonard Stein and I did the American premiere of Boulez's Third Sonata, about 2 or 3 weeks apart in California. Wow. I was in San Francisco, he was in Los Angeles. New York was not playing Boulez. There was a real kind of a combine against Boulez as music. And of course, once Boulez became the director of the New York Philharmonic, oh, please play my piece, so everybody comes to, please,
I'll tell you one thing. When Bill, we did a residency at University of California at Berkeley in 2008, was it, or 2005? 2005. Anyway, the other composers skipped him. They wanted nothing to do with him because Bill has one foot, as they saw it, in the popular world. Performing with me, doing the historical popular songs.
Or, the popular side of what the cabaret songs are.
Exactly. You're supposed to be ivory towerish and be a composer who only, it's the old war between, I don't know what you'd call it.
What? That's the academe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what
ivory tower.
I think this is more or less going to change, or it's busy to change. Don't you think? I don't know. I have the impression.
I think it actually sort of has, and it's just a matter of holding out for a while. I mean, if you look at, for example, recently there has been a break of 3 CDs of my piano music you could buy from Naxos. It has my first Fantasy Sonata, which was a kind of a mixture of Boulez and Ives in sound, and because that was a very complex piece. I finished another Fantasy Sonata, which will be premiered by Dennis Russell Davies later, sometime next year, whenever there's a place to do it. But and that was a very complex piece. Now, if you ever to find this particular three CD set, you would find a whole great range of what I did. I did not record the rags then. Oh, Marc-André Ablin is going to be bringing out a whole CD set of my piano rags.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and in fact, he just laid them down, and it'll be brought out on Hyperion next year, I think.
Yeah, great. Early next year.
And he was who also had premiered my 12 New Etudes for piano, which won me the Pulitzer Prize, and it was the first non-orchestral piece that the Pulitzer ever awarded any kind of award to. So, because of his wonderful playing. and he just did that on his own recognizance, and it's going to be fantastic. I was able to be in on today, like I'm talking to you on Zoom, and they did. Mark and a wonderful Judy Sherman, the great recording engineer. They went to Worcester, or spelled Warcester, in Massachusetts, which has a wonderful. It was called Mechanics Hall.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the great 19th century halls with a fantastic acoustic, and they just recorded them there. But I sat in on the whole recording and contributed on Zoom.
That's right. They wanted Bill to fly out at first, and then, when this number started going up, Michigan is not lucky that way.
I don't want to go on a plane until I absolutely have to.
No, not given our age and everything.
No, of course. How wonderful. So you could just be present at the recording by Zoom?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So that's what I did. It was fantastic. And I'm talking to you right now. I mean, can you imagine if I had to fly someplace to do this?
That's right. And so actually, you did tell me by email that you have memories of Bruges?
Only a little bit. I went there once to visit, and I think I walked into the cathedral, and then I walked into there was something that was on at the I was just there for a day or something. I don't, and that was about 1960. It's a little bit back. So my memories are very, very slight. But my memories
were 6 years ago. Yeah. So I read about this piece you wrote for the Concerto for Two Pianos for Gary Graffman and the
for two left-handed pianos.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Mio had written the 14th, 15th string quartets to be played together as an octet or separately. And so David Zinman, the conductor band of the Baltimore Symphony, said, "Well, you're a student of Mio. Do you think you can do this with the two pianists, Gary Graffman and Leon Fleischer?" And I said, it's insane. I think it'll just be just a big mess of notes. And I tried very hard to figure out how to do it. And then every time I said no, and they upped the commission fee. Finally, finally when the numbers started to look very interesting, I said, well, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this. So what I did is I printed up some paper, which I could fold in half, and I made a kind of a short score for one of the piano's orchestra, which I decided would all be mostly winds. So that would be for Gary, and the other one, which is Leon Fleischer, who had kind of a darker saturnine personality. They were friends as kids. Gary and actually Leon and Gary lived in the what you might call the musician's ghetto in the Upper West Side of New York. Right. They had places across the street from each other, and they could open windows and play duets across the street. And so they'd been very close as friends. And so the idea is, first of all, I found that intriguing, but the idea is, how am I going to contrast them? So what happened was that the piano one, which is for Gary, mostly it was winds and percussion. And then for Leon, it was a certain brass horns and so on. But the other things, so the one, Gary's orchestra was much more almost a band-like, and the other one was more kind of deeper and saturnine. So it meant you could have two kinds of music going on together. Otherwise, it would have just been a mess. So what Naomi Graffman said, she was Gary's wife, and said, why don't we do it, since the whole thing was about a little under 20 minutes, so that the first half of the concert would be Concerto 1, played by Gary, followed by Concerto 2, played by Leon, and the second half would be the two together. And people had to come back and see how it would fit. And it was still pretty busy when you put the two concerts together, but it wasn't just a welter of notes. So that was, I guess, the whole idea. So that's how I did it.
All right.
Any other things? This has been fun. I very much enjoyed meeting you both, at least.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yes,
Thank
fantastic.
you so much for doing this. Wonderful.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Right.
We look forward to the performance.
want to swing in a cellophane skirt. Give me my change in a celluloid note while I buy wooden hats from the factory boat. Places to live, give me places to live. Wonders to wander to, places to live. My tonsils are longing to hum a new tune. I'm dying to dance by the dark of the moon with mustachioed mounties in deep purple kilts and me in blue velvet on flaming red stilts. Places to live, give me places to live, give me wonders to wander to, places to live. My soul is gaining a new form of faith. I need a new God more than Henry VIII to take off my feathers and give me release, and I'll kneel in the sand and I'll drown my release. Places to live, give me places to live. It's toothbrush time. Turn him again and toothbrush time. Last night at 9:30 it seemed okay, but in the light of day, not so fine. A toothbrush time. Now he's crashing around my bathroom. Now he's reading my degree, perusing all my pills, reviewing all my ills, and he comes out smelling like me. Now he advances on my kitchen. Now he raids every shelf, till from the pots and pans and puddles and debris emerges 3 eggs, all for himself. Oh, how I'd be ahead if I'd stood out of bed. I wouldn't sit here grieving, waiting for the wonderful moment of his leaving. At toothbrush time, toothbrush time, 10 a.m. again and toothbrush time. I know it's sad to be alone. It's so bad to be alone. Still, I should have known that I'd be glad to be alone. I should have known, I should have known. Never should have picked up the phone and called him. Hey, listen, oh, you gotta go too?
I'm so glad you understand.
By the way, did you say 9 tonight again? See you then. Toothbrush time. Surprise! The 25th year of the office. They are a surprise party. Surprise, surprise, surprise! And were they surprised when she tried to drink? I had from the paper cup at the water corner. Of course, bring the water. A man I know to keep alive dies for a living. To survive, to keep alive dies for a living. Stands upon a stage each night, matinees from 2 to 5, to keep the show alive. To keep the show alive. Dies for a living. I've taken the position, do or die, not to survive for, nor keep alive for, nor to die for a living. fuck it, he's gone. So I open the window to stare down the dawn.
My friend George used to say,
Oh, call me Georgia,
get yourself a drink,
and sang the best soprano in a part of town. In beats, brocade, and pins, he sang if you happened in. Through the door he never looked, and said, get yourself a drink, and sang no doubt till the tears fell in the cognac and the chocolate milk and gin, and on the beads, brocade, and pins. When strangers happen through his open door, George said, stay, but you gotta keep quiet while I sing, and then a minute after, and call me Georgia. One fine day, a stranger in a suit of navy blue took George's life with a knife. George had placed beside an apple pipe he baked, and stabbed him in the middle of Maldive Drabble, as he sang for this particular stranger who was in the United States Navy. The funeral was at the cocktail hour. We knew George would like it like